Howdy, hey, happy Tuesday. Look, y'all, I was on here just talking away because I thought I was live, but I wasn't live yet. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 study tips for the 2024 EA exam. If you are new to me, my name is Timalyn Bowens. I am America's favorite EA, and as an enrolled agent, I'm licensed through the Internal Revenue Service to represent taxpayers in all 50 states. And if you've been here, you know, as a matter of fact, I have clients who are all over the world. And I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, you want to be able to do the same thing and represent taxpayers before the IRS. So that's why this month, I am joining the Video Every Day in April challenge, and I believe it's 20 days. Let me just look at my calendar. Don't start me lying, right? It is actually going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 22 days. I'm going to be sharing tips for aspiring enrolled agents about studying for the EA exam, how to pass it, different review courses that I'm going to be doing reviews on. I'm going to also have a guest from Gleim next Wednesday on the 17th. But then I'm also going to talk about how to start your own enrolled agent firm. Those 22 days are dedicated to my EA folks. So if you haven't already, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel because Tuesday I'll still be live, but the other videos, so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, will be on YouTube only. All right. So let me make sure that I am good on LinkedIn. Right, let me check in here. All right, awesome. Good morning, Deja. So Deja says, good morning. Finally catching you live. I don't know what's been happening. I hope you're doing great. Thank you so much, ma'am. I am doing well. I am on my sabbatical. I will be checking into my office from 4:30 to I believe 6 today. Because I do have a meeting that I couldn't push back. But I am doing well, recovering from my tax season. I'll be back at it on the 22nd. Miss Dorothy says, good morning, Miss Timlin. Good morning to you as well, Miss Dorothy. So I see I have the numbers on YouTube. I got 2 on YouTube. Nope, 3 on YouTube, 2 on Facebook. You guys jump in the comments as you are hopping on. Just say what's up so I know that you're here. LinkedIn still has a lag. Look, I have an appointment at 12:30 Eastern, and I'm sure that the majority of you are actually preparing taxes, or if you're thinking about the EA designation, you probably are working in some other position. So I'm going to try to be brief today. If you guys have questions, as always, please put them in the comments and I will address them as I can. But for those who may be brand spanking new to the EA designation, as I mentioned before, it is a license that is through the Internal Revenue Service. It is actually the highest credential that the IRS awards to a tax professional. And that's pretty cool because the only other 2 professionals that can represent taxpayers before the IRS are a CPA, so certified public accountant, or a tax attorney. So it is a very special designation, and you do have a lot of authority in the tax world with that designation if you are going to be doing representation work. In order to become an EA, you have to pass a comprehensive test that is made up of 3 parts that will test you on individual taxation, business taxation, and then procedures and practice, which is ethics and that type of stuff. All right. A lot of it based on Circular 230. Now, with that being said, I've already done a video talking about the EA exam. Today, I just wanted to share 5 study tips to help you because that testing window is going to be opening back up on May 1st. And I know at least 2 of you on here are currently studying for the exam, and I'm rooting for you and wishing you all the best. And hopefully, if you haven't already implemented these steps will help you. So on your next exam, you can feel a little bit more at ease. So Jeremy McKinney is on LinkedIn. Good morning to you, sir. How are you doing this morning? This is interesting because here on LinkedIn, it's not showing me anybody. I appreciate you for being a faithful viewer, Jeremy. All right, so step number one is where I see a lot of my EA friends, aspiring EA friends, mess up. You have to remember to take people's advice with a grain of salt. So, the number one thing that you need to do, my tip for today, is to learn your study style. Let me go back. Identify your learning style. Because check this out. By nature, you guys know that I'm a writer, I have a blog, I write for different publications. So for me, one of the best ways for me to retain information is by reading it. I can listen to it all day, but until I actually put my eyes on the paper and look at it myself, I don't retain it as well. That's not going to be true for a lot of you. I know, even though I think reading is wonderful, but other people do struggle with that. So if I were to get on here and say, you need to buy this book and you need to read it this many times, that's not going to necessarily work for you. You need to figure out, how do you learn best? Do you learn best in a classroom setting that's in person? Do you learn best in a classroom setting that's online? Can you do well if you're only in a Facebook group to have people to bounce ideas off of? Do you need one-on-one attention where maybe you have tutors or a teacher that's working with you directly, or can you do it in a group setting? Could you never read the book and only listen to it? You have to identify what your learning style is. Now, for me, like I said, I had to read the book. I purchased Fast Forward Academy's book and I read it all the way through, highlighted, did all of that once. So by the time I went and listened to the lectures, everything was already familiar and it was a refresh. I wasn't learning it for the first time. Again, that's my learning style, and that's something I had to identify because I had people tell me, oh, you could just look at the publications, which is cool. I did look at the publications as well. And one of the things that I do recommend, coming right off of tax season, if you work in individual taxation, you need to study for immediately or study during tax season for part one of the EA exam, because the tax law that's covered on the EA exam is going to be what you just got done doing. With that being said, it's going to be fresh in your mind. So if you don't do estate returns all the time or trust returns, you do need to make sure that you are educated and well versed in that for the exam. But you need to capitalize on what you've learned in tax season and apply that to the exam so you can go ahead and knock it out. All right. So, one, identify your learning style. Two, and I learned this in school, in college, you need to have a designated study place. All right. I don't know what it is about it psychologically. So, for me, when I was studying for the EA exam, we were in a smaller apartment. My husband was also finishing up his bachelor's degree. I had a toddler. So studying at home for me was not ideal. I was not retaining the information. Even with my highlighter and pen, it just wasn't sticking for me. Fortunately for me, I still live in the same city as my alma mater. And I remember one of my accounting teachers saying that if you were able to study in the place where you take the test, that may help you. Or if you're able to study in the place where you learn the material, because you'll call in different memories of going over those things. So for me, thinking about that and needing a quiet place, I was like, what classes did I get the best grades in when I was here at school? Where did I study? What was my routine during that time when I was in school studying for those exams? So for me personally, my designated study place was level A of the library at the school that I attended. I don't know what it was about it. Like I said, I know it had to all be psychological, but I was able to sit down get into the material, retain it the same way that I was when I was a student there. And it was like every time I went to that place, my brain knew to shut other things out. My brain was trained that while I'm in this place, my phone goes on silent, it goes on the corner, and I don't check it. Whereas if I said, okay, today I'm going to study at Starbucks, the coffee shop's here. If I don't sit in the corner, put a hat on, and sit like this, I'm going to always see somebody I know, especially now because I have a favorite local coffee shop. Always see somebody I know, and then I'm not able to get any work done. I couldn't say, okay, I will study at home because, as I mentioned, at the time I had a toddler. My husband, he was working full time, finishing up his bachelor's program. So, any time that we got together was special. If I was at home with them, I wouldn't be focused or studying. Even if they weren't at home, I wouldn't be studying because, oh, the dishes need to be washed. Oh, that needs to be cleaned. Laundry needs to be folded. So you need to have that designated place where you are free from all distractions. Now, for some people, you can study at a coffee shop. That's awesome. I just know me in my life, I couldn't do it at that time. So, one, you're going to identify your learning style. Two, make sure that you have a designated study place. And my numbers are been off and on. I don't know if I'm boring today, if people's internet's messing up, but as you hop on, say what's up in the comments. Markeisha Smith says hello, hello, hello to you. My folks on LinkedIn, now I can see the numbers and it says there are 15 people on LinkedIn on this live stream right now. And I've only had 2 of you say hello. So if you're on LinkedIn, and I don't want to get you in trouble at work, and I know sometimes it's glitchy, but if you're on LinkedIn, just say good morning, say hello, let me know that you're studying for the EA exam right now. Just say something for me, all right? So, one, you're going to identify your learning style. So, if you do better in the group setting, cool. If you need a tutor, cool. You just need to identify what's going to work for you. And you can't always take the word of what worked for somebody else because you're 2 different people. Okay. 2, have that designated study place. And then number 3, do have a study group. So for me, at the time that I became an EA, when I was studying, I didn't know anybody else local that was an enrolled agent. As a matter of fact, I often will brag, still do, that the school that I graduated from has the best accounting department in the region. Now, folks from UK may try to argue with me, I'll win, but with that being said, the whole time that I was going through undergrad, I didn't even know what an enrolled agent was. Part of what I'd like to do is go back to the university and universities to let them know what enrolled agents are. The reason I bring that up, I had this goal to become an enrolled agent after I found out what it was because lifetime learner, but I knew I wanted to do representation and it made more sense to me to take the EA exam versus the CPA exam just because of all the other topics that were covered. I didn't have anybody here locally to push me. Okay. So when I say join a study group, it does not have to be in person. If you are the type of person that learns best, like with people in person and Zoom's not good, then by all means, I urge you to find somebody that you can do that with. But time and life sometimes don't allow that. So for a study group, they do have paid study groups and there are free study groups. For me personally, I was able to find a group online. I'm trying to think what it was called. I think it was just IRS SEE, or maybe it was IRS EA exam. I have to go back, but to this day, I still see some of those same people on the internet. I'm not in the group anymore. I still see some of those same people on the internet though, and I appreciate them for everything that they put into that group. Excuse me. Everything they put into that group because they didn't know me. There were people in Jersey, there were people in California, but they always had a question of the week that would test my knowledge on a different area of the exam. They always had practice questions. they would break it down. If somebody was having trouble with a question and didn't understand it, there were always people who were kind that would help break them down, reverse engineer it. And through that study group, I was able to hold myself accountable to make sure that I was studying. All right. If there was a topic that I didn't understand, I could always put it in the group and ask for more help to see what kind of memorization tools other people used so that they remember those different concepts and things. Some of the areas that I see people struggle with are depreciation and bases and distributions. Now, for me, because I worked in the public accounting firm and I worked mostly with business returns, those are concepts that I was familiar with. Believe it or not, I didn't understand some of the individual taxation concepts because that's not the area that I worked in when I was in the CPA firm. Now I was able to learn those and get down in there, but a lot of that and my success with the test was most definitely because of the study groups that I was in. So I think it was 2 months ago, I had Brian Hawk from Hawk International on, and he shared that they have a free group on Facebook and they just have practice questions. I think it even the group is called EA exam practice questions. And it's pretty cool because all they have in there are questions and you can work them and share the answers, share the work, see how other people solve the problem, why the answer makes sense, and then it gives you an idea of where you need to study. Okay. And in your study group, you want to make sure that you also have people that are in different parts of the exam because they're going to be able to come back and tell you, like, okay, the exam had a lot of depreciation, for example, right? Or I didn't have a lot of basis, partnership basis in my test. Those are the types of things that you need to know to help you mentally prepare that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. You just have to be in a study group. All right. So, Facebook. Miss Misha Lewis Scott says, "Good morning, Timalyn. Happy Taco Tuesday. Happy Taco Tuesday to you as well." I need to cut back on the tacos here for a little bit. So we have identify your learning style. You need a designated study place, a study group, and then number 4, you do need to choose an EA review system. As I mentioned before, I had Brian Hawk on here, I believe in January, to talk about the Hawk International EA review system. There is also, excuse me, there are also other review courses. So there is Fast Forward Academy, Glyme. I will be on live April 17th with somebody from Glyme, and they're going to be sharing about the Glyme review course and why it's different. There are people who license these different review courses and they teach them in person. There's an event coming up, I believe in July or August, I've been seeing on Facebook, and they're using one of these EA review courses and they're going to teach it over a week span in person because, like I mentioned, some people's learning style, they have to learn in person and be able to touch people and talk to the instructor directly. Then we also have, I believe, Surgent. There's one called Certifiable. All of these different EA review systems, and people ask me, oh, which one should I choose? So for me personally, I use Passkey. Passkey is now licensed, or Hawk International now has the license to Passkey. That's what I use. I was able to pass each part on the first try. I highly recommend it because it worked with my learning style. Your learning style may be different than my learning style, so it's something that you should check out. Now, with Hawk, I know that they do have where you can get a free trial so you can get in there and see how it works and everything. But again, I'm going to shamelessly plug here. Like I said, this month you have 22 days of content from me that's dedicated to enrolled agents. Part of what I'm going to be doing this week and next week are giving you tips on how to study for the exam, because last week I talked about what the exam was, right? The 3 parts, how to apply for enrollment. This week, I'm talking about how to study for the exam. I'll be sharing a story with a study plan of what I did to pass all three parts on the first try. But I'm also going to be doing a review of different EA exam courses. All right. So I will be reviewing Hawk without Brian on with me. I will be reviewing Glime without a guest on with me. And I haven't gotten into it all the way. However, I do have some questions that I asked that certifiable answered, and I will be doing a brief review on them. But like I said, I didn't actually get to get in their hands on like I have with Hawk and like I have with Glime. So it's not going to be as in depth. Okay. So let's see. Deja says, I have a 2-team study group with myself and Letitia. That's how we both passed part 3 in December. I'm very excited to start studying again. Look, and congratulations to you both. You guys found something that works for the two of you, and you guys are getting in there and getting after it. Now, I don't know if you heard me earlier, Deja. If you have not taken part 1 yet, right now, I know you're probably waiting because 415 is next week, but immediately I would study for part 1 because the tax law that's going to be on part 1 is going to be everything that was written and updated all the way through December 31st of 2023. So everything that you just done this tax season is the material that's going to be on part 1 of the exam. While it's fresh in your head, I highly, highly, highly recommend you go ahead and get part 1 out of the way. Deja also says, yes, I love Hawk/Passkey. Absolutely. I have said it before, I'll say it again. Christy was like my best friend during that time because for me, I had to travel a lot during that period of time. So, yes, I had read the book, but I listened to her as I was traveling because they have where you can listen to the audio of the lectures. I think the video was still playing, but I would be listening to the audio and like laughing at her jokes with her and everything. And that really helped me to retain the information that I'd already read in the book. Awesome. So Deja says, yes, we're studying for part 1 starting April 22nd. Look, best wishes to you guys. I am looking forward to you guys both messaging me and letting me know that you passed parts 1 and 2. So let me make sure I don't have anything else over here on LinkedIn because sometimes you all, I will have people writing on here and it doesn't show up on StreamYard. Okay, I think I'm good. So I still got 9 people over here on LinkedIn. For whatever reason, they're not loving me right now. They're not giving me any comments or interaction, but that's all good. So last but not least, and Deji, you are very welcome. You need to create a study plan. Listen, I talk to my mentees in the enrolled agent mentorship program all the time about you cannot throw marketing at the wall and wait for something to stick, right? You have to be strategic and have a plan. Same thing with the EA exam. For example, Deja, I will use you because you just brought it up. Deja went in, studied, passed part 3. She has a study partner. They probably have a dedicated time they study. They may have dedicated material that they study. And then she shared with us that starting on April 22nd, they're going to go ahead and start studying for part 1 of the exam. That's awesome. All of this builds on each other. Once you identify your learning style, you have your designated space, you find your study group, you have an EA review system, you can create your plan. So for me, I gave myself a certain amount of days to study for each part of the exam. With that, I gave myself a certain amount of days to read all the material. I gave myself a certain amount of days to read the publications that corresponded with that material. Then I gave myself a certain amount of days to listen to the lectures that matched that. And then I would take quizzes. Then I would take a practice exam. I think I only took 3 practice exams, but I would take a practice exam. I would brush up on the spots where I felt like I was weak, and then I would go take the exam. So to stick with that plan, what I did, I would look at how much material there was. I would break it up, and then I would go ahead and schedule the exam. Now, if you don't know this about me, I hate wasting money. I hate paying interest. I wasn't about to pay a reschedule fee. So I knew for me, and this is part of knowing your personality and your learning style, that if I made the investment to pay that money to sit for the exam, I was going to take the exam, and I'm very competitive. I don't like to lose, which is part of why being in the study group was good for me, because I was like, if that person can get that answer, surely I can get it. So by setting that date and creating that plan, it helped me stay on track to make sure that I was able to pass the exam on the day that I went in to sit for the test. All right. Does that make sense? I know there's a little bit of a lag, but what you can do, again, if you have a study group and you have people studying the exact same thing as you can collaborate with them and say, okay, when are you going to schedule your exam? This is when I'm scheduling mine. I know that I need to be here to study. So, as I mentioned before, I was doing a lot of driving on weekends. So, for me, during the week after my daughter was asleep, I could read. The weekends were for the lecture. So I knew this day, this day, this day, or this night I'm reading. This day I'm taking practice quizzes. And it was really cool because at the time, Passkey, you could pull it up on your phone. So I would do my practice quizzes on my phone throughout the day. And then on the weekends, I would listen to lecture. So I had my system, even though at this time it felt chaotic because so much life was happening. I still had a system to make sure that I broke my goal of passing the EA exam into 3 parts. And then I took those 3 parts and I broke them into even more digestible parts to make sure that I passed this exam when I planned on passing it. So, very quick recap. Number one, you need to identify your learning style. Tip two, you need to have a designated study place, whether that is at home for you, if you're able to. And if you're at home, remember, you need to be somewhere where you are free from all distractions. So maybe it's an alcove for you. Um, in my house, my daughter has her own little personal space that's under the stairs. She has books, there's a little TV there. If you have a place like that, make that your study place. Put your phone on silent, put it on do not disturb, push it out of the way. If you can't do that at home, you have to find a place that works for you. Maybe it's going to be Panera, maybe it is that local coffee shop, maybe it is the library. You just have to figure out what that designated space is going to look like for you. Number three, have that study group, that person that's going to be on you to help you keep yourself accountable. Number four, choose an EA review system. And tomorrow's video, I will be talking about what an EA review system is. Next day, I'll talk about what to look for in an EA review system. All right. And then last but not least, make sure that you create a study plan that is built for your success. All right. We don't just want the big goal of passing the EA exam. You need to break that into smaller, digestible pieces so you can see where you're actually moving forward to your goal each day. All right. So let me see. I don't have anything else on LinkedIn other than 15 people that aren't saying anything to me, guys. But if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to hop off of here. Wishing you all the best studying for the exam. And like I said to Deja, I'm looking forward to that DM, her telling me that her and Letitia passed. When you pass the exam, if you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments. If you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, when you pass the exam, send me a message to let me know that you passed because I'm rooting for you to become an enrolled agent as well. Any questions, comments, you guys leave them down below. Have a great Tuesday.